Hey there, Kai here. Now, over the past 4 to 5 weeks, we've been living in perhaps the strangest time of the century. Our economy shut down overnight, schools and offices closed, we're walking around looking like ninjas, and we're all going a little stir-crazy cooped up in our homes. But perhaps the silver lining of all of this is that our governments around the world are releasing funds and stimulus packages to help citizens and small businesses. Some countries are doing a better job than others, but hey, they're trying. But what does that really mean for our stock market? I mean, most of us know we're about to enter an official recession next quarter, quarter two. But for all intensive purposes, we're definitely in a recession right now. Is there a way for us to come out of this ahead? Not just health-wise, but financially too? Let's take a look at how the CARES Stimulus Act and potential future stimulus plans really impacts the stock market. It does, it will, and it's a bit weird. Let's talk about it. Slap hands, bump fists, let's roll. Alright, so we get that we're all kinds of screwed as an economy and a market. Stay till the 5 or 6 minute mark and I'll give you the exact reasons and what to look out for as we approach the next market crash. But why and how will this stimulus and future ones impact stock market investing? Well, it really comes down to 2 key problems specifically with this recession. Problem number 1 is inflation. Problem number 2 is how much inflation. Now, I shared this in a previous video, but we'll see the market do something like this, with real estate lagging behind maybe 6 to 12 months, possibly a little bit longer. Now, I'll talk more about that in another video, but essentially this is because of money drying up and the destruction of investor confidence in the market. Now, we need to understand a little bit more about inflation and why it's going up from the stimulus package, or packages depending on what they pass, and what kind of impact it'll have on investing. Okay, so let's jump in the time machine real quick and go back to Obama's 2008 corporate bailout, where it tallied almost to $8 trillion, 7.9 to be exact. And in some circles, it's even saying as high as 14 trillion. But let's be a little bit more conservative and look at that 8 trillion figure. We can look back at historical inflation rates and notice that it was relatively low. It did have a little bit of a bump up, but nothing too out of the ordinary. How could that have been if there was an $8 trillion bailout? Let's bounce over to one of my more popular graphs that I've been using a lot, where it shows the total currency in our US economy. If we look at how much money was created in our economy during that time period, remember, this is actual currency, not GDP. We see between 2008 and 2009, we have less than $1 trillion in additional currency. Now keep in mind, this was over the course of 16 to 18 months-ish. The reason was because the government did not just print cash and give it to banks and corporations. The $8 trillion bailout was a combination of insurance, loans, investments, with minimal amount of it being actual free cash, such as forgivable loans we see for small businesses and the $1,200 checks for individuals today. On top of all of that, the bailout of 2008 was not infused straight into the economy and given to the people. Instead, it was sitting in the vaults and accounts of banks and corporations, all who were too scared of their doom and gloom and were just sitting on liquid assets just in case the worst got even more worse. And that's the thing with inflation. New currency has to be printed and implemented. Those 2 things didn't really happen in the 2008 recession, so we didn't see too much from inflation. Fast forward to today. Look at how things are swimming along and then boom, see this sharp spike of $1.3 trillion of currency in just a few weeks? That's our first stimulus package, and we still have more money to create and give out. That's the difference between this recession versus the 2008 recession. We printed a lot more money in a short time period and implemented it by giving it straight to the people, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it is basically like mainlining currency straight into the economy. Those are the real telltale signs of a growing inflation in the years to come. Okay, so when inflation increases, your purchasing power declines and each dollar can buy fewer goods and services. So now let's avert our attention to the stock market and see why this will make things weird for investing in the upcoming months to years. Now, stocks are often broken down into 2 categories, value and growth. Value stocks have strong cash flows that will slow over time, while growth stocks have little to negative cash flows but expect to increase a lot over time. So here's the weird part. Value stocks will outperform growth and income, also known as dividend stocks, in the upcoming market, not because of the recession, but largely because of inflation. The key reasons why value stocks such as Home Depot, Bank of America, and Intel will outperform growth stocks such as Uber, iRobot, or Wayfair is because of how investors value stocks, especially in a time of high inflation. High inflation means greater risk, and without getting too much into the weeds of the math and lose you all, basically when big investors or companies or corporations or hedge funds value a stock, they look at cash flows and discount it with a risk percentage, also known as a discount rate. That risk percentage can get really high with inflation because you need higher returns to outperform inflation. So in layman's terms, if you're valuing a company based on how much cash or profits they can generate, and if said company has 0 to negative cash flows, the valuation you assign is going to be slaughtered in a bear market, especially with high inflation. So essentially, growth stocks really suck right now, unless you're confident that they won't go under and you're okay holding on to them for the next couple to several years. Next, which probably will surprise a lot of you, are the income and dividend stocks. Now, a lot of beginners and advanced investors alike enjoy stocks that pay high dividends. Who wouldn't like a 7% dividend check every year or paid out every quarter with your investment? Way better than the 0.1% from local banks. Well, in a high inflation recession, dividend stocks get beaten up really bad because of 4 core reasons. 1, stock prices get hammered. 2, dividends are not guaranteed and usually the first thing that gets slashed or taken away during the bad times. 3, dividends cannot keep up with the inflation rate. And then 4, tax burden on dividends causes a double negative. But really the thing with high inflation is you'll typically see increasing interest rates by the Federal Reserve to offset inflation. So sorry, we won't see 0% interest rates forever. And just like bond prices, as interest rates increase, bond and dividend prices will decrease. Compound that with a flailing economy and you'll see big dips in the stock price, potentially wiping out any of your original investment gains and an uncertain dividend payout. However, investors looking to add dividend yielding stocks for cheap when inflation is rising, this next recession could provide an attractive entry point for you. Now, of course, the ideal scenario is to find a value stock that offers a small dividend. Companies that I keep an eye on that fits this category is Home Depot, Waste Management, and JP Morgan. If you have other good ones, tell me down in the comment section down below. Now, these days, you should never have to pay to trade stocks. Back in my day, it would cost between $5 to $12 for each trade. Now it's all free. I have 2 favorite stock apps right now that I use on my iPhone, and they're called SoFi and Webull. Both are offering sign-up bonuses right now. SoFi will give you straight $75 once you open and deposit $1,000 into the account. I use this all the time for my fractional share purchases, and it's probably one of my favorite user interfaces. And then Webull will give you 2 random stocks valuing up to $1,400 if you open up an account and deposit just $100. I use this app for more in-depth analysis and to look at financials since it's a bit better in that aspect. Links are down in the description. Either way, you get some extra money to play with and stick with me and we'll get you started in investing in the market. Now, this recession is very different than anything that we've seen in the past several decades. Actually, anything that resembles what we're going through right now is the Spanish flu pandemic from 1918 to 1920 that was also the catalyst for recession at that time. And from what we know, the general rule of thumb is that value stocks will do far better in the upcoming recession than growth stocks and income stocks, or also known as dividend stocks. Now, obviously the times and our technology is very different than 1920. I mean, it was 100 years ago, but we can still borrow a few key lessons from history. Our market right now is floating along and even growing, but it's on hopes, prayers, and cash flows from the distant past. The market normally trades on the immediate, right now, and growth, and those future cash flows do not look great. What I'm trying to say is the stock market right now is about to face a big drop, and here are the reasons why. 1, the tremendous amount of stimulus money, $2.8 trillion at the moment and growing, is fueling inflation. The $2.8 trillion is very different than the $8 trillion during Obama's term and the 2008 fiasco. I'll explain in a little bit. Number 2 is personal small business bankruptcies are just getting started. We've got a long road ahead of us, and if businesses close, Who's going to employ all these people that are currently unemployed? Which leads into number 3, unemployment rates are nearing Great Depression levels. And what's dangerous is not how high this is, which is flirting around 25-30%, but how long it stays high is the real danger. And with businesses closing doors, like I just said, and social distancing standards, we're not even sure, even if the economy opened up tomorrow, how many people would actually be rehired. And perhaps the biggest piece that I don't think enough people are talking about, and I see as a major contributor to this next crash and the push into a deep recession, is that companies and employees' inefficiencies during this time. This is not something that we trained for nor expected. Huge corporations, banks, companies are maybe able to weather this storm with deep pockets, Zoom meetings, and working from home. But let's not pretend they're working at full capacity. Between kids at home, distractions, and just overall lack of in-person communication and accountability, I give my super accurate estimate that most companies are operating at between 60 to 75% efficiency, and I think that's even generous. Combine that with horrible sales numbers, you have a disaster in terms of profitability. And then 5, it's not just office inefficiencies and lack of revenue that's going to be hurting us, but think of all the other major revenue sources in our economy that has basically dried up. Concerts, conferences, hotels, work gatherings, corporate meetings, weddings, any type of traveling, everything and anything that requires a group of people to interact with one another is canceled or postponed until we get this virus contained. But those numbers and the effect of those cancellations haven't been shown or reported yet. The next 3 to 6 months will be very telling, especially as we go through peak traveling, wedding, and entertainment season, or which traditionally was peak. And that's because most businesses and people can't hold out that long. Most people have between 1, 2, maybe 3 months of savings, and same thing for small businesses. Anything longer than that, we start facing major fiscal responsibilities and dire circumstances. Now, I talk all about the timeline and when I think this is gonna happen and come to a head in a lot deeper detail in this video. Go check it out after this if you wanna see exactly when I think this is all gonna come crashing down. Now, there's a lot of news and information floating around right now, especially on sites like YouTube and Facebook. But be careful with what you take in and educate yourself before making a decision. Even watching a video like this where I'm basically telling you that the market is going to crash and what type of stocks you should be investing in. You shouldn't just take a YouTuber's advice because you watch one of our videos. I want my videos to spark curiosity in you and for you to go out and start searching on the internet for more information, perhaps even start learning a new skill like investing. And that's what will help you get through these times and make money. I made money from the last recession and I will make more money in the upcoming years. Not because of my background or education, but like you, I got curious and started watching videos and then became more curious and then addicted to something new and eventually good at a skill set. Mine just happens to be around building real estate and understanding the financials of a company. But that came with time and dedication to learning. Let's get better together as I learn to make better videos for you and bring you good content while you commit to learning something new that will enhance your life in a small or big way. It's up to you. Like this video if you liked it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Follow me as I keep you up to date on everything that's going on and even start sharing ways I'm investing and spending my money to come out the other side a little bit wealthier. Love you all. Don't drink bleach, eat your vegetables, and seriously, buy a bidet. Link in the description. Kai out.